We've done little like fairs, vendor fairs, and we've done a couple of the Alzheimer walks. When they do come up to us, it's
always positive.
Always, yeah.
The covers and everything draw them in. They're colorful. They're like she said, the whimsical little dragons. Kids love dragons. So we've always gotten a good response. But even when people read the books and strangers, family, whatever, we've always gotten good feedback from it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one I wanted to mention real quick was we always tend to get a counselor. They'll come up to us and they'll just start telling us their story, and they'll start crying. And I'm a hugger, so I have to go give them a hug and just let them cry it out and tell us their story of what they're going through. But yeah, we've got, we have fun with those events, and it's fun to talk to people, and it's cathartic.
Welcome to the Alz Authors Podcast. We're so glad you found us. We're the global community of authors writing about Alzheimer's and dementia from personal experience to light the way for others. I'm Marianne Shuko, a registered nurse, author, and dementia daughter.
And I'm Christy Byrne-Yates, a licensed educational psychologist, dementia daughter, Alz author, and coach focused on the sandwich generation. Please join us for bi-weekly episodes with our authors as we talk about their dementia journeys, sharing intimate details and painfully obtained knowledge to help others currently on that path.
We hope these stories offer you comfort and support as we strive to break the silence and stigma surrounding a dementia diagnosis.
May one of our authors speak to your experience.
This is the Whole Care Network. Helping you tell your story one podcast at a time. Content presented in the following podcast is for information purposes only. Views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the host and guest and may not represent the views and opinions of the Whole Care Network. Always consult with your physician for any medical advice, and always consult with your attorney for any legal advice. And thank you for listening to the Whole Care Network.
Hi, I'm Christy Byrne-Yates, an Alz author and co-host of the Alz Author Podcast, Untangling Alzheimer's and Dementia. It's the end of the year, and at this time, many people like to make their end-of-the-year tax-deductible donations. Have you considered making a donation to Alz Authors? We're a 501c3 organization that is run by volunteers who read every word of every book by our authors before they become part of our family. The management team and podcast hosts and producers are also volunteers. We bring you special events, share information and tips through our newsletter, podcast, YouTube channel, and through social media. All of this work is done by volunteers. Our authors pay a minimal administrative application fee to be considered, but beyond that, they don't pay any fees to have us promote their work. Many of our authors and management team members attend special events in their communities to share the work of Alz Authors and to support families on a dementia journey. Much of that is funded by the authors themselves. So in this season of giving, please consider a tax-deductible donation to Alz Authors. You can find the donation information on our website at alzauthors.com/donate. And remember, you are not alone.
Hi, Marianne. How are you this morning?
I'm good, Christy. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm excited for today because, I love children's books. So we are interviewing two children's authors. It's a sister team. Aden and Sheila Parsley wrote books after caring for their mother. And they have written 6 books, and it's a series of children's books.
They have one series is Grandma is Acting Funny, and the other series is Grandpa is Acting Funny. But in each book, they also do one that's for the beginning stage, the middle stage, and the late stage. So Grandpa is Acting Funny, the beginning stage, a children's view of Alzheimer's. Grandpa is Acting Funny, the middle stage, a children's view of Alzheimer's, and Grandpa is Acting Funny, the late stage, a children's view of Alzheimer's. And then they did the same for Grandma. So Grandma and Grandpa. And these are really delightful books. They are all dragons. They have dragons instead of people. So they're very accessible to any child who finds themselves in a book. And so this is great. So I think it's really cool the way they put that together. And they're just lovely drawings, very whimsical and really fun. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about them. And
yeah, so am I, and what brought them to write these children's books. But Lori has also written another book, a memoir about her caring for her mom, and it's called I Remember Me, The Mom Chronicles. And what Lori did during the dementia journey was she chronicled the experience on Facebook so that her family could keep up with what was going on. And before she knew it, she was getting requests from other people, friends of friends, and other family members to share, to allow them to read her postings as well, because they were experiencing similar things. And she had a lot of good advice. And so she put all that together as well. So they have a full package over there with books. They've got something for kids and something for adults.
I know they're very prolific. So it's really exciting to talk with them. Mm-hmm. And all right, well, let's get started.
Okay.
Well, I'd like to welcome our guests to our podcast this morning. We've got Lori Aden and Sheila Parsley, authors of a couple of children's books, and we'd like them to tell us a little bit about them. And we also have Marianne. Marianne, welcome this morning.
Hello. How is everybody?
Doing fine.
Okay.
So Sheila and Lori, I'm so excited to have you here because I happen to love children's books. So I would like to hear about your children's books and your journey and how you came to write them. So if you could tell us, I actually have the books here, but maybe you could give us the titles and tell us what your books are.
Okay, so we have three, actually it's two sets of three books, and I'll explain a little bit more in a second. But so this is Grandma's Acting Funny.
Right.
And when we started writing the books, we realized that one book would be too large to explain what a child could see at every stage of Alzheimer's. And we simplified it with the 3 stages. We know there's the 7-stage model and the 3-stage model. So we separated them into the beginning, the middle, and the late stage of Alzheimer's. And when I was looking for children's books, just to, see what was out there, families look all different ways. So how would a child relate to a family that looked different? So it's like, okay, well, we'll just go completely off the grid, and we love dragons. And so we went with a very whimsical, colorful dragon family. I'd only seen one other children's book that had an animal type character. So we just, we love dragons. And so we went with that, and our books, we modeled it after the things that would happen with my mom, or in the memory care where my mom was, things that happened with other residents that we noticed. So, and the main character is purple for Alzheimer's. So a lot of symbolism in the books, and
based on my mom.
Yeah, they are
character.
And we had a beautiful friend of ours whose dad had dementia. She illustrated the books for us for free because It was a labor of love for her. It was something, that's a big expense if you ever try to write a children's book. And, and so there's even little Easter eggs of our mom in the books. And then after probably a few months after we published those,
people are wanting, something for grandpa, because, it's not just moms, it's the men's side of the family too, excuse me. So we kind of flipped the script on it and had Grandpa is acting funny. And it's based on our illustrator's dad, the main character.
So
That's so great.
If you even look at the cave wall, there's this on the Grandma series, there's a picture of my mom as the portrait, and in the Grandpa series, there's a picture of her dad as the portrait. So just little things, but we divided the common things we saw in each stage in those books.
I just love that. And I actually want to say I so appreciate you being sensitive to how children might receive this if they, and seeing themselves in the book. That's so important for kids. And I think having the dragons is perfect because it really does lend itself to different groups of folks, different cultural entities. I mean, it just really, it's so kind of you to do that because it is Alzheimer's knows no boundaries. So it's great to be sensitive to that need. And I love it that you have whimsical things in there. What a precious thing for you both to have some Easter eggs in there about your mom and then for your illustrator too. What a gift. Yes. That's great. Yeah.
It was, we totally enjoyed this whole process. It was fun. Yeah.
So in your journey, can you tell us a little bit about yourselves and what role you played in your mom's care? And I know you lost your mom during the COVID pandemic, so that is another one of those tragic situations that occurred for a lot of folks. So if you could tell us a little bit about yourselves and a little bit also about how you came to learn as much as you have about Alzheimer's the hard way, right? So
the hard way. Yeah. So I'll start. This actually even started before my mom. My grandmother had you'll hear me say our grandmother had Alzheimer's as well. And at that time, this was back in early 2000s. Our mom lived in California. Our uncle lived in Boston. So my grandmother was alone up in Dallas. We lived in Huntsville. And so we moved her into an assisted living, and I needed to drive up. It's a 3-hour drive. So I would drive up and get her medication ready every month, and they would dole it out to her. But then it got to a point that they didn't want her in assisted living anymore. Her dementia had gotten worse. So we moved her in with us. And at that time, I was a college teacher in the prison system, and I couldn't, I was having to take her to doctor's appointments. I mean, you all remember all the doctor's appointments that happen with Alzheimer's. And it got to the point they said, Lori, if you want to keep working here, you're going to have to do something. And so we moved her to my mother. So my mother actually took care of my grandmother through Alzheimer's. So I only witnessed my grandmother like in the beginning, maybe middle stage. And then because she was in California and we couldn't get out there very much. So, I didn't quite understand the full magnitude of what it was going to entail with the whole thing. Fast forward 2000, probably about 2014, started getting the phone call, because mom lived in California, the phone calls, the repeated questions over and over. It's like, oh gosh, mom's calling again. Do I have to, and then we got a phone call from my stepsister and saying, hey, just want to let you know, your mom got lost on her way. Got lost on the way home from the nail salon. She loved to have her nails done. And it's like, okay, we're at the point now. So talked to my husband, and we all made the decision. We moved my mom in with us. My stepdad moved in with my stepsister. And that started our journey. So we took care of mom the first probably 2 years at home. And as you know, as Alzheimer progresses, it's a lot of time. I had a different kind of job that allowed me to have the flexibility to take her to doctors, which was a huge blessing. And then it got to the point where of course, I'm fast forwarding through a lot of this, but it got to the point where we couldn't physically take care of her anymore. The confusion at night, just the constant ER doctors visits, just physically got hard. And so we put her in memory care. We had to do some creative financing because she didn't have long-term care insurance.
Right.
So it was up to my husband and me to pay for it. And, that's a long story we share in one of our other books. But so she was in memory care for a couple of years. I learned so much from Jenny Knutson. She was the memory care director there. I dug into research. Because I didn't know enough about this state, all these stages of Alzheimer's. And then the last year of it, it was COVID. The last year she was enough progressed in Alzheimer's that she didn't really know what was going on. And so to make financial sense to us, she finally qualified for Medicaid. So we put her in a nursing home, and it was just heartbreaking. I didn't want to do that, but I learned in research that, I could look up rating systems for nursing homes. So I found a really good one, and I had a camera, nanny cam. So I could keep an eye on her and make sure things. And then the last 4 months of that, I was I was having to go up and help feed her because she couldn't remember how to eat. And the last 4 months was the COVID shutdown. And so she definitely declined because I wasn't there and they didn't have time to feed her. So she wasn't eating. She wasn't, she was drinking. Yeah. So, and we were able to be with her the last 3 days, which was a fight, if anyone remembers. And we were blessed to be able to get in there to be with her the last 3 days of her life. So, but yeah.
And then, since I live in Huntsville, I would come up every other weekend so I can spend time with her and also give Lori a break. So that she can get out of the house for a few moments. Cause as y'all know, 24/7 kind of care, it can weigh on you. And so I would do what I could, every 2 weeks to give them a little break. And also, like I said, just to have my time with her too.
That's so wonderful. And you bring up so many critical points of this dementia journey. You mentioned creative financing, that Medicare won't pay for certain kinds of care. These are the kinds of things our caregivers all face. And it's really frustrating. And I could say so much more, but it's very hard. And then that weighs on you as a caregiver also to you're forced to make very difficult choices. But Sheila, it's so wonderful that you had your time with your mom, but also, I can relate to having someone be able to come in and sort of give you that time, because you do need that replenishment when you're doing day to day. And then I can't even imagine how hard it was for you with the COVID restrictions. And I'm glad you fought for that time with your mom. So many people didn't have that. That's just
right. Yeah. It was, like I said, it was a fight to get those few days, but we did get them, and we're thankful for it.
Yeah.
I picked up on something that you said that I have run across in other people's stories. The separation of the couple, that you said that your mom went to live with you and her husband went to live with his daughter.
Yeah. Where
was she and how did that work out? Because, that's really hard, I think, to separate the married couple.
Oh, they were devastated. She lived down in Magnolia, so it was a 3-hour drive. So in the beginning, what I would do is we would drive. Sometimes we would meet halfway to let them have lunch together. Most of the times, though, it was me driving my mom down to Tomball and letting them have lunch together and spending a few hours. And I would try to pick it on like long weekends because I knew that drive would be horrible. So I needed an extra day to kind of try to get through it. But Yeah, and they had she had her phone. That phone, they talked every day. And of course, I know poor Ted, he was, it's the same,
Same conversations
over and over, but they, that was her lifeline. And if she couldn't find her phone, which most of the time was in her bra, she was crying and I can't find my phone. It's like, Mom, okay, I called it and it's like, oh, okay. But that was their lifeline. And then when she was in memory care, his health declined pretty rapidly. And when he passed, we made the decision not to tell her until there was one time that
She asked.
did. Yeah, she just point blank asked, and I did. And I've got a beautiful just memory of her. Actually, I even recorded her at one point where she's looking at his picture and just patting his face and just, blowing kisses to it, and, yeah.
Yeah.
He didn't know how to take care of her and his health wasn't great. And,
Right. No, sometimes that's what families are reduced to. I had to do that with my mom and her husband. He had dementia and he had to go to memory care, and she was home with her own care system. And we would try to bring her to visit, and it was just devastating. She could never get over the fact that he wouldn't respond to her. He didn't know who she was.
Yeah.
So it's tough, but it's when separating people by miles in states like that is huge. Because I know there was one other story I know of where there was one was on the East Coast and the other was on the West Coast.
Oh, wow.
So there was no visit.
Yeah. And there's no telling how long Mom's dementia was really, all we could hear was just the repeated questions, but we weren't seeing the manifestation until we actually got out there. It's like, oh Lord, this has been going on a while.
So what did you see? Can you describe?
Yeah.
The hoarding, of course, she was always a hoarder to an extent. Yeah. But this was like her refrigerator was so full of stuff that was rotten and spoiled. And
you saw some behaviors, and those are pretty shocking. So how did you respond to that? What were you feeling? What were you thinking?
When I saw that, it was hard because I didn't realize just the condition she was living in, and her and Ted both. And I mean, it was detrimental to their health. And now I understand why they were going to the doctor a lot. So like, were they eating spoiled food where the refrigerator was full of just food that needed to be thrown out? The hoarding, just the clutter, the trash. It was, it broke my heart.
Yeah. Do you talk at all about in your books, because they're for children, about when you say you talk about the different stages, do you talk about how kids can learn to interface with or talk with their grandparent when they're acting a certain way, or how to respond to things?
Yeah, we do. We have, as she mentioned before, situations that we encountered over time. We'd put that in there, and then like put on how they can, interact with it. Like if they repeat so much, like just go ahead and answer again.
If the family member, if the grandparent is seeing something that is not there, the stories that they come up with or the things that they're seeing, it's like, okay, tell me about it. What are
act like you
believe it.
Yeah.
And then we talk about like if it's frustrating you, if the repeated questions is just driving you crazy, it's okay to go play in your room or go find other dragons to play with, and it's okay to be sad when grandma doesn't remember your name. And so, yeah,
we try and, help, it's supposed to, be fun to read, period, but also help them through the situations.
Right, absolutely. And so because you've written more than one, is there a name for the series? Is it And are they all, I know you did the grandmother and the grandfather, or grandma and grandpa, which is fabulous.
Yeah. So it's grandma's acting funny, and then it'll have the beginning, the middle, or the late stage. And then yes, our books are, so it's the main title is Grandma's Acting Funny or Grandpa's Acting Funny. And then it'll have the beginning stage, the middle stage, or the late stage. And they're different colors, different depictions of things that were happening in that series or that stage. And then the tagline is a children's view of Alzheimer's.
Oh, great.
So that way it clues parents in or family members in that this is for Alzheimer's.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Would love to have you read from one of your books and tell us a little bit about it.
So we thought we would do just real quick, like during that poetry thing, I did just a real quick one from each book. So to give you an idea of each stage. So from the beginning stage, we picked up on the repeated questions. So it says, it's got a picture of like, what day is it? Is today Sunday? What is today? So the repeated questions, like sometimes grandma asks the same question over and over again. Daddy said to keep answering it, whether it's the third time or the 10th. He said, if I'm getting too frustrated with grandma's repeated questions, that it's okay to excuse myself to go play with other dragons.
Oh, it's terrific. Yeah, that's great.
And then this one is from the middle stage. And it's basically the starting of where it came, mom had to come and live with us. Mm-hmm. And it's showing her getting lost from the nail salon because she, that's one of her things. She always did get her nails done. So it says, Grandma got lost the other day flying home from the salon. A kind stranger found her on a cliff and helped her find her way back home.
Oh, terrific.
We've heard that story from so many people where mom gets lost on her way to or from the nail salon or the hair salon or something.
Yeah. And that's usually the big clue. Yeah. That's usually, there's something really wrong here if you can't remember how to get home. And then from the late stage, we picked this one. It's about, you see the grandma is holding a little baby doll. And, you got to think about a child sees grandma holding a baby doll. That's got to look a little weird. So grandma holds a baby doll that talks when she presses its belly. This doll will coo and laugh with her. Thank goodness its diaper isn't smelly. So that baby doll was a lifesaver for my mom.
Yeah.
The first baby doll we bought didn't coo or anything. It was just and it was fine. But the one that she could press its belly and it would laugh and talk to her and giggle. Oh, yeah. That kept her entertained until when I was watching her through the camera during COVID, that she was holding that baby doll. That was her comfort.
That's so beautiful and really great that you included that, because I think a lot of people aren't aware that that's a treatment or comfort that is often offered, and that it's really it is, like you said, a lifesaver. It's so important. Mm-hmm. That's great.
Do you remember the name of the baby doll or the manufacturer in case people would be interested in getting it?
Off the top of my head, no. I can see it perfectly in my head. And I bought 2 of them in case one of the residents walked in and took hers, because that's a very common thing too.
Yeah.
But I can look it up and send it to you. It was
just it's just a little doll that was had a little hat, and you squeeze the belly and
it giggled.
That's terrific.
Said a few
little phrases. I love you. Yeah.
Okay.
And she would press its belly. So
was it soft? Was it a soft doll?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was soft.
Was it, because I know there's, was it one that was made intentionally for people with Alzheimer's? No? Okay. So I'm sure, but
it was just for a child.
Yeah. If you find it, we can add it into the show notes, or we'll make a point of noticing that or mentioning that somewhere, but that's really great. And then, so do either of you have kids? And if so, did they help you know a little bit about how to share some of this? Was this hard for them, either with your grandmother or with your mother? Because you might have older kids. I don't know.
Right. So I have a 30-year-old now,
Okay.
and he did interact with my grandmother,
Mhm.
our grandmother, when she was, but not that
Mhm.
much, and it's been so long ago,
Yeah.
it's been over 20 years since that, he was little, he was there. He was there when she lived with us. So, I really don't remember how
Mhm.
he reacted because it was the very beginning stage.
Yeah.
He loved my grandmother dearly.
Mhm.
But then we didn't really make the connection. Oh, mom's going to go through this. We didn't make that connection. We just thought, grandma's got dementia.
Sure.
But Josh, as an older adult, he had a hard time being around mom. And he just, not that he loved her, and he just had a hard time seeing the changes, and he kind of regrets not coming to visit her more, but he couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
He had a hard time handling it.
Yeah.
But he was great though.
Yeah.
And if we asked him to come, stay with her so we could go on a date, he would do that.
Yeah.
If I had a conference to go to, he would do whatever we asked, and he just, I think it hurt to see because they were really close when she lived here in Texas when he was little.
Yeah.
What about you, Sheila? Did you have children too?
No, I don't have any children. So my experience is through Josh.
Yeah. It's lovely that you put this together for kids, because I think that it is a conversation that is hard to have. And like you said, it's difficult for people, and it's difficult for kids to comprehend. It's difficult for me to comprehend. So, and then to help your child understand, especially if they'd had a special relationship with someone. And you spoke about something else that was that I think also comes up for caregivers a lot, and that was in your first position, how when you were working at a college teacher at the prison, how they were not necessarily supportive of the kind of time that you needed, and so. But you've moved to another position where they were a little bit more supportive. I think that's a conundrum that a lot of our caregivers face, is workplaces not necessarily understanding. Some of that might have shifted with COVID, and it's also tightening up again. I don't know if either of you have any thoughts on that, and did you?
Well, I think it also has to do with the kind of position. So that point, you think about substitutes, and you getting a substitute in, especially the kind of position I was, because in a prison system, you don't just get any substitute to be able to have permission to go into prison
Right.
and teach there. So that was difficult.
Yeah.
And, so my boss, wished she could help, but her hands were tied when, the inmates the offenders were, they were expecting someone to teach them, and
Right.
I couldn't be there enough to teach them. So I understood it completely.
Sure. Yeah.
What I do now, though, I work in an office. So, and I on the other side of education, where I'm leading, I'm helping in a different way. So I have much more flexibility.
Right.
But yeah, I think it has to do with the type of position, which, that could be another reason why a lot of teachers are leaving the industry, if they're, we're just seeing more and more multi-family households now, and having to take care of parents, and,
Right.
It takes a village. It truly does.
It really does. And you're absolutely correct. I do believe that there are just some positions you can't zoom in, right? If you're a bus driver, you can't zoom in that day's work, right? You might be able to do that periodically as a teacher, but you really couldn't do that if you're a chef at a restaurant, a server. Right. There are a lot of jobs that cannot be remotely conducted. So I know that at workplaces face this a lot. But that's just a sidebar on that. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. You're basically putting your life on hold, so, if this is the career you wanted, you may not be able to do it for a while until, you may have to do something different and how does that affect your retirement? How does that affect, it's a snowball effect.
It's
Well, it's a dilemma that women always have to face, when they have children and things.
Yeah. Exactly.
Everything, your career is always in the back seat, even if you're the sole provider or the main provider.
Right. And one thing that we kind of clued in on that made us more empathetic while we were going through this as caregivers, this is of our mother, but what about all the caregivers of disabled children? And, they're going through the same thing. Their lives are on hold. They are having to figure out how to be there 24/7 to take care of, so we have definitely become more empathetic for caregivers in general for all kinds of situations.
Yeah, it's very difficult. Yeah. So I appreciate your words on that because it's overwhelming. Other thoughts that you would like to share with our readers about, do you do events where you sell your books and talk about them? I know you're on Amazon, and I read that you're also on, your book is available through Barnes and Noble and some other online stores through you publish through Ingram Sparks, which is great. But have you done some events, and what kind of reception have you gotten for your book?
We've done little fairs, vendor fairs, and we've done a couple of the Alzheimer walks. When they do come up to us, it's
always positive.
Always,
the covers and everything draw them in. They're colorful. They're like she said, the whimsical little dragons. Kids love dragons. So we've always gotten a good response. But even when people read the books and strangers, family, whatever, we've always gotten good feedback from it.
Yeah, and one I wanted to mention real quick was we always tend to get become almost like I'm not getting the right word here, but a counselor. They'll come up to us and they'll just start telling us their story, and they'll start crying, and I'm a hugger, so I have to go give them a hug and just let them cry it out and tell us their story of what they're going through. And then, but we've got, we have fun with those events, and it's fun to talk to people, and it's cathartic, it's for both us and them. So.
Yeah, sharing stories is cathartic. Sharing stories. Sharing our stories makes us strong.
I have the t-shirt. I'm not wearing it, so I couldn't remember. I could have looked down. And to that, actually, Lori, I know you started a blog, not a blog, I guess a newsletter or a Facebook thread that's kind of pre-book that you started with that, the Chronicles, the Mom Chronicles, or I remember
the Mom Chronicles. Yeah. That's how this whole thing really started. So because she lived in Huntsville and my uncle lived in Boston, I just started, when Mom moved in, I would just okay, this is what happened with Mom today, being very careful of how much I shared because I wanted her to, keep her dignity. I was like, the I would call them puzzles. So Mom would say something weird. It's like, okay, what did she mean by that? And I was like, oh, okay. So I would share the funny thing. I always tried to share the funny things, but then there were times I was so frustrated. It's like, ugh. Yeah. So I was just sharing these things on Facebook. And at some point, I don't know when, I started calling it the Mom Chronicles. And so what turned out to be an amazing thing was just supposed to be giving Sheila and my Uncle Quentin updates. It turned out people were following it. It's like, oh, can you please friend my friend who's going through this so she can learn from you? And I've got more friends on Facebook now that I don't know, I have never physically met them, but we have become very close because of this whole situation. And it ended up, that book is called I Remember Me, the Mom Chronicles. And there's a story there about one day we were coming back from a dentist appointment, and we were driving by somebody, a dilapidated old house. They had a lot of junk and just trash and stuff out, not trash, but just a lot of junk out in the front yard. And she was like, that place is awful. And even though I knew better, I was like, Mom, we really, trying not to make her, you shouldn't judge, It's like, do you remember? And let me back up here for a second. Our mom has been married 8 times. And so 8 times. She was not very lucky. That last husband, though, he was wonderful. The longest, Ted, was just the love of her life. And I'm so sad it took her that long to find him. But anyway, so do you remember being married to, and I'm not going to say his name, to so-and-so? And she goes, no. I said, do you remember being married 8 times? No. It's like, well, this one particular husband, we lived in a place like that for a summer. It's like, she didn't remember that. But then she said, because I was doing the wrong thing. I was saying, do you remember? Because you shouldn't do that. But I was doing that. Do you remember? She goes, no, but I remember me. Mm-hmm. Just a really soft little thing. I remember me. She didn't remember any of those. And I'm so grateful she doesn't remember that turkey butt, because, he was awful. But Alzheimer's is a blessing in a way. She forgot a lot of stuff that happened to her. So
yeah.
But that one little saying, it's hit. Stuck. Yeah.
So, I Remember Me in the Mom Chronicles, and so now we have a Facebook page for we call it I Remember Me Publishing, and I share Alzheimer tips. I follow y'all. I follow a lot of other Alzheimer blogs. Some of the memories that pop up on my feed, I'll repost there of things that we had learned. The little fun things like, be sure you use a doctor's prescription for everything. That's how we got away with bloody murder with her. It's like, okay, hey, Mom, you can't drive right now. The doctor wants you to wait 6 months before you start driving again. Hey, Mom, you really need to, the doctor wants you to take a shower twice a week. I mean, we share little tips like that, using the business card, to subtly hand to somebody if she's acting, if she's acting weird in public. It's like, you can just slide it to the waiter. It's like, she just has also, but it gives me a little, just tips like that. So that's how, and we love sharing what we've learned.
That's wonderful. And that's still going then, your Mom Cry.
Yes.
That's wonderful. That's great. I think that, again, that's that community that gets built around, sharing some of these tips, and maybe even tips you wouldn't hear from a gerontologist. They might not be saying, "Hey, have a little business card." They go, but really important. That's beautiful. That's wonderful. Anything else that you would like to share with our things going on? Any other books coming? You guys have written quite a few. I'd love that you have a whole series.
We've actually started an activity book for kids, but it's centered around help grandma match the socks, but
it's also something that can entertain someone with Alzheimer's,
right.
because Mom liked to color. She liked to paint when she was younger. So as she got older and got into Alzheimer's, she liked to color and stuff. So the activity book that we're trying to put together is something that, kids can use, but also someone with Alzheimer's could use. And we're also thinking maybe older kids, maybe together for them too, because it's, this is for younger kids.
Right.
And older kids, they could handle a little bit more information. So we're thinking about doing that also.
It'll be a different style of writing, so I have to see if I can get my head wrapped around that kind of writing. So,
But that's beautiful, because that's also another thing that kids and families need is what kinds of activities are certain age grouped kids interested in that they could do with their grandparent or parent who might need a little different way of interacting. So that's great. I love an activity book. That sounds perfect. Yeah.
Sounds great. I had a question for you. What do you wish you knew at the beginning of your dementia journey that you didn't find out until later?
The finance part of that, that I wish I had gone to see an elder care attorney just to understand our options, because I made a lot of mistakes, handling the finances at first. And, I think that slowed us down with getting her approved for Medicaid. And I say that I think the timing was right for when she went to the nursing home. Memory care we really wanted her in enough of a headspace that she could interact and participate in the activity specially designed for it. So yeah, just the finance part, because
you have to handle their money a certain way.
Yeah.
Or it can mess up, like she mentioned, it can mess up other things later on.
Like I can't even pull the money out of her bank account, which is not much in there right now anyway, because I didn't set the bank account up right. And it wasn't worth it to us to go to probate to pull just a few bucks out of, so all the paperwork, all the DNRs, the medical power of attorneys, all that stuff, but yeah, definitely the finance part. And then just knowing the resources that were available, and it differs county by county. So like I met a dear friend who lived in Dallas County and I lived in Collin County, and she had so much more resources than I had. I mean, she had the ability to have someone come in and stay with her mom. I didn't. So yeah,
I went through the same thing. My mom had excellent resources when she was living at home. And then she moved to my brother, who was in the next county, and they determined she wasn't eligible for anything. And we just couldn't believe it. I said, if I knew my mother would get better if I moved her, I would have moved her.
Yeah.
Come on.
Definitely the finances.
Same situation.
Yeah.
I don't think people are aware of that. And we always tell people you need to find out what's available to you in your community.
Yes.
And people who want to relocate, they always, when they want to retire, they say, well, we'll go find a cheaper place to live. Well, it's cheaper because they don't offer any services for the elderly.
Right. Yeah. And there
you need to pay attention to that stuff.
Yeah. And one of the things I tell people in my book and in my work is you need to have these conversations early, because you don't know when, like you said, your mom may have had dementia a lot longer than you are aware of, right? And that those early stages are not necessarily evident, especially if you're not around your person all the time, right? And so, and me, I just, was living in denial because they were so functional. So I thought, oh, everything's fine. But we have to have those conversations early. And if it's not Alzheimer's, just aging can be impacted by injury or illness of other kinds. And then you might not be able to have those conversations, right? So we want to get those done early. I did have a question though, too. One of the things that I think is so important is self-care. So what are some of the things you both learned about caring for yourselves during this time? And what would you share with our listeners?
Well, for us, when she actually lived with us, it was just a huge blessing for Sheila to come up and give my husband and I time to get away. And, trying to take care of myself. And I'm still kind of a person that goes and goes and goes and goes and goes. So I had a hard time slowing down. Now you are better at it because you love to read.
Yeah. I find things that I enjoy to do. So reading, we actually got into painting, like painting it with a twist, those kind of places. And, we would go do that. And it, it was just a relaxing time, just a couple hours away from a home. And so, we still come do that, on occasion. So we do things like that to get back into the right headspace.
Yeah. In fact, the very first night that they locked mom down for COVID, they hadn't closed everything down around the town yet. And I went and painted that night just because I was so upset that I knew at that time we didn't know how long it was going to be. It's like, oh, I hope this is over in a couple of weeks, but I'm not in there to help feed Mom tonight. So, yeah. So that's little things like that.
And then I guess my final question, and then anything else you two want to share, but how did this impact your relationship with one another?
Oh, we have gotten so much closer. We joke that we're, but we have really gotten really close. Yeah. We have an older brother that we're estranged from. He came to visit our mom once. So we have a lot of hurtful feelings there that we're working through. But Sheila and I,
it's brought us a lot closer.
Yeah. So she still comes up almost. Yeah. And, my husband and, they're close too. So, it has definitely helped us.
Yes.
So, and we know that we're going to be there for each other. In fact, we're even all talking about getting one big house together, knowing that Alzheimer's is probably coming down the pike for both of us. So, we're preparing for our son and his wife, so they know how to take care of us.
You got to get those books written, right? Yeah, here we go.
How to take care of your mama and your aunt. Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's beautiful. Anything else you'd like to share before we end? This has been really fun and very informative.
Well, this has just been, we appreciate you giving us this platform to share. We're so proud of the books and just trying to figure out different ways to get it out there. But yeah, it was a hard journey, but we learned so much from it. And I feel like it gave us a different life path going forward. And so, yeah.
Wonderful.
It helped us, have a bit more, improved our relationship with Mom in the process.
Yeah, definitely. And we're just hoping that they help others, we hope that the books, the kids, we've even got family, friends that don't have Alzheimer's in their family. They bought it just to support us. And they said, our kids love to read it. They love reading since it creates lots of questions. So it helps them with, if they see someone acting strange out in public, it's like, well, that person might have Alzheimer's, So a lot of, people are loving the books and we just hope they help.
Oh, that's terrific. Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for being patient with our little chihuahua.
Oh, he's adorable. Thank you for listening to Untangling Alzheimer's and Dementia, an All's Authors podcast. For more details on this episode, please see the show notes. If you enjoyed the podcast, please leave a review and subscribe to it on whichever platform you use to listen to your favorite podcasts. For more information on All's Authors, please visit allsauthors.com. While you're there, be sure to browse our online bookstore, where you will find hundreds of carefully vetted books on Alzheimer's and dementia. You can also find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Please email your thoughts on the podcast to allsauthors@gmail.com. We are a 501c3 charitable organization, totally reliant on donations to do what we do. If our authors' stories move you, please consider contributing to our cause. Remember, you are not alone. One can sing a lonely song, but we chose to form a choir and create harmony.
Hi, I'm Susan of All's Authors. When I was a caregiver for my mother with dementia, resources to educate and offer support were hard to come by. All's Authors believes in the power of storytelling to support and encourage those impacted by Alzheimer's and dementia. Custom Caregiver Collections is a customized collection of memoirs, novels, caregiver guides, children's books, and more. This collection of well-vetted books comes displayed in a beautifully crafted wooden tabletop bookshelf with All's Authors branding. Custom Caregiver Collections supports our goal of bringing real books to real people in real places and are perfectly suited for senior care communities, senior centers, doctor's offices, memory cafes, and professional or personal libraries. If you or your organization is interested in ordering or building a custom caregiver collection, we can guide you through choices of books written in many categories to support your needs. Want to build your own book collection? Contact us at alzauthors.com/ccc to get started.